Good evening, sci-fi movie nerds, and welcome to another episode of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy. Jason from Trench Run Rebels will be joining me in just a second, and we're going to be reviewing The Ghosts of Geonosis, Part 1 and 2. So, let's just take a look at the Season 3 mid-season trailer, and then we'll be right back to review The Ghosts of Geonosis, Part 1 and 2.
Kanan?
Card Jedi Order forward. This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. This message is a warning for any surviving Jedi. Is a warning, Dark Shadow. This is a warning. Warning.
The Empire's hiding something important.
We'll deal with it. They can't keep it hidden forever.
I just hope it won't be too late.
There's a rebel spy in our midst. Codename Fulcrum.
We're building an alliance. This is our rebellion.
A coordinated attack by multiple rebel cells is unprecedented.
They've revealed their meager defenses. And it's exactly this moment I've been waiting for.
Welcome home. I should let them know we're coming so they don't shoot us down.
That's funny. Wait, you're not kidding, are you?
Your rebel friends are going to bring the Empire down on all of us.
If you can convince your mother to help the rebels, all of Mandalore might follow you in the Darksaber.
Once people know you have it, you will be challenged. You must use all your skills together.
I'm fighting for you and everyone else not to lose what they've got.
My friends make the impossible possible.
Come on, bust some buckets.
We will show the galaxy what happens to those who dare speak against the Emperor.
Not if I can help it.
We'll never surrender to you, Thrawn.
I'm not accepting surrenders. I want utter defeat, crashing down upon you.
You're in the wrong place.
So before we get into the episode, and just so you guys can see, there is a spoiler alert up there, so we're going to be spoiling the hell out of this episode. Yeah. We wanted to talk about that trailer you guys just watched. So the Season 3 Part 2 trailer. Jay, I'll let you go first. What did you think of the trailer?
Well, the trailer is really good. I really like the foreshadowing that they've done, that we're going to actually start to learn some stuff about Sabine.
Yeah, that's
Sabine's
so cool.
A great character, but up until this point, we haven't learned a whole lot about her.
Really underused,
yeah. There's definitely some backstory. We know that she's tied into House Vizsla. Obviously, they hint at the story that we're going to get. We're going to go back to Mandalore. We're going to learn about some more Mandalore stuff. Obviously, she's got the Darksaber.
That is so cool. And
we get to see her
training
with the Darksaber. So
it looks like whoever holds the Darksaber kind of rules the army there.
Well, yeah, that was pre-Vizsla had the Darksaber.
Okay.
And then when Darth Maul took him down, Darth Maul took the Darksaber, and obviously Darth Maul had the thing in his little house on Dathomir in the mid-season finale there.
Yeah.
So now we saw Sabine take that thing, and now is she going to be the leader of the Mandalore or the Death Watch, or does that whole get blurred?
And that's kind of what I'm wondering, because Kanan says you're going to have to defend that saber if you want to hold on to it.
Right.
So I'm wondering, does that saber have more of a significance that we're going to find out that whoever wields that saber kind of runs the army or the rebel faction of them, or
right.
what that's going to be?
And then they mention her mother, and they show that female in there. Is that Bo-Katan? Because I was almost thinking that Satine might be her mother.
I know, I was hoping, but I don't think it is now for sure.
But are they just
Satine's
throwing
dead.
that at us? Because they clearly showed that picture of Satine in the season finale.
But that's because Maul loved Satine. I think that was a shrine of Satine that Maul built. Because I think Maul, he liked Satine, and like he wanted to take her away from Obi-Wan.
Really?
That's just how I took it in the Clone Wars.
Or maybe he just studied Satine because he had heard or knew of the affection between Obi-Wan. Because he's a single-track mind. He's all about Obi-Wan.
Oh, absolutely. And we find that out at the end of this
trailer. That out. Oh, my gosh.
Wasn't that amazing the way they did Alec Guinness's voice rather than Ewan McGregor's voice? Yes. Because we're only 2 years before A New Hope in this season.
Right.
So I love the fact, and I think it's James Arnold Taylor doing the voice again.
No, it's actually Stephen Stanton.
Okay, I'm so glad you knew that.
Yeah.
So it's Stephen
Stanton.
Okay.
Who's a veteran of the Clone Wars voice actors. He did Grand Moff Tarkin in the Clone Wars. He did quite a few. He's a fantastic voiceover artist.
It sounded exactly like Alec Guinness.
And when you heard him talk, it was Alec Guinness talking. And I love they gave him the gray hair, because we're,
2 years?
18, 19 years after Revenge of the Sith now?
18 years.
18 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
So he's aged. If he's supposed to be... how old is he supposed to be in Revenge of the Sith?
So he's supposed to be
30s?
No, in Revenge of the Sith, 35.
35, okay. So that puts him at close to 55?
55 in A New Hope.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's in his early 50s. He's graying up. He's starting to get that weathered, worn look that we all know from A New Hope, right? And when he says, "You're in the wrong place,"
that was awesome. And he does the finger point that he did in Clone Wars with the lightsaber. That was cool.
Yeah, that was a fantastic trailer, and gave me chills to see that we're gonna get another showdown between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul.
Now, do you think
fingers crossed Obi-Wan survives?
Yeah. I think Maul dies at the end of this season.
I think so.
And
too.
I think it's going to have to be a definitive death, because Obi-Wan, you said he has a real problem finishing off people.
I don't think we've ever seen anyone coming back from a decapitation before in Star Wars.
No.
So I think a decapitation is what's going to be in store for Mr. Maul.
All right, so that was what we thought of the trailer. Now we're going to get into this episode.
Yeah.
So, the Ghosts of Geonosis, Part 1 and 2, we're going to talk about it all as if it was one episode. So that's episodes 11 and 12 of Season 3.
Right.
We just watched them back to back. So, Jason, why don't we start with what we really liked about this episode?
Okay, well, I'm just going to start on the surface level. The Star Wars Rebels has become so beautiful. Like the episode itself, the animation, the textures, the environments that they do. I mean, when you compare it to early season 1, those first few episodes, where it looked like a cartoon almost, it was really animated. They've done such a fantastic job to bring it back to the level that the Clone Wars was at. I mean, seriously.
And I don't know if you noticed, but how good was the music in this episode?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it really brought you in almost like a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's, what's his name? Greg Kiner is doing the music for Rebels. But yeah, again, the environments, the sandstorm when they're coming into Geonosis, certainly a throwback to the deleted scene from A New Hope of the sandstorm on Tatooine. But the environment, the texture, everything, it was just a beautiful episode. I love that.
I think, and I felt like it was a darker feel. And when I say darker, I don't mean like the screen was darker. I mean like just the music was more ominous in this episode. The way that they captured everybody, their demeanor, And I asked you while we were watching this episode, how many kids do you think are watching this episode versus adults like us that love Star Wars? Because if I was a parent, I might have to pre-screen some of these before I let my kids watch them.
Right. My kids are watching them. I have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. My 10-year-old's fine with it, but my 6-year-old, I was watching the mid-season finale before I came over here, actually. It was the one with the Night Sisters and the ghost and all that.
Yeah.
And he was sitting on a different couch, and those Night Sisters, the ghost, he came up and hopped on my lap. He's like, I want to cuddle with you. They're not pulling any punches on these animated series.
And I love the fact that they're doing this because they're making it for us too.
Yep. They're making it for us, but kids get it. I would say definitely pre-watch these if you don't know if your kids can handle it
for the rest of this season.
If your kids are going to have nightmares and stuff like that. Like this one's not too bad. The last episode with the Force Ghost was a little bit much, but there's certainly heavy tones of mystery and intrigue in this. There's something out there, we don't know what it is, and we have to discover what it is. They're not pulling punches, and it makes it for a fantastic viewing episode for the entire family.
So I made some notes that I want to talk about. I liked in part 1 where they had these 2 distinct storylines. I love when they do this in Rebels because it's the throwback to the movies where they have all these different storylines going on. They're able to flesh out the characters a little better. And I have to be honest, I kind of like the Zeb Sabine storyline where they went to the shield generator, which throwback to Hoth, those shield generators on Hoth. I liked that storyline better than the going down in part 1, going down through the tunnels, Cain and Ezra storyline. I thought that was way better because and again, I think Zeb is going to die before the end of this season. I think they need to do. Yeah, I think so. Hey, and I was right about Rogue One, everybody dying, and you said they might not. I just have a feeling that this is the season where they have to get rid of someone to show the direness of the rebellion and against the Empire. It's just my thing. And so I think they're flushing Zeb and Sabine out a little more in this episode, and I really like that.
Yeah, as far as the character of Zeb, they had some good development with him early on, but they haven't done much with him lately.
Fulcrum.
Yeah, the episode with him and Fulcrum, or him and Callus on that moon, was it, that they were stuck on? That was a good character development episode. But since then, he's been kind of in the background, and he goes out and he's got some things to do, but they haven't really developed his character. Oh, there was the episode where they had the other... What species is he?
Zeb? Oh my goodness, it's escaping me.
It'll
come to us in a minute.
There was the 2 other species that they took him to the edge of the universe or whatever, and they had the Force. Yeah. So there has been a few episodes developing his character, but since early on,
but I think we've got it. I think we've got everything we need to know about him, and now it's Sabine's turn.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they're backing off of him a little bit. To your point, they might be preparing us to get rid of him.
Because again, quickly off topic of the episode, but I think that what they're doing is they're setting us up for the Rogue One battle, but I don't think all of the rebels are going to be in the Rogue One battle. I think the Ghost is going to have less crew members. Right. I don't know how many less, but for sure I think Zeb less. Yep. But the other things that I wanted to talk about, and these are the things I like the throwback when he said he's not a Skywalker. When Kanan jumps over I love this. It's a lot of fan service in this episode. Yep. And I love when he jumps over the chasm after he does the Force Bridge. That Force Bridge, it just shows how powerful Kanan's become after losing his sight. And I mentioned to you in one of the other talks that we did that I didn't like Kanan as much until he became blind. And I really think that has flushed this character out and shown how powerful he has become with the Force. Since losing his sight, he's had to rely on other things.
Well, ironically, since losing his sight, I believe it's given him better focus.
Yeah.
Right? If you go back to A New Dawn, the novel that introduced Kanan and Hera, he was a drunk. He was denying his past. He didn't want to be a Jedi.
When he was Caleb?
When he had actually already taken on the name Kanan.
Okay.
Caleb was his Jedi name, but he got rid of that to go into hiding, to get away from the Jedi altogether. But he really denied the whole Jedi thing. I mean, and even in the early season 1, he's hiding his lightsaber in 2 pieces so no one can tell he's a Jedi. He reluctantly takes on Ezra as an apprentice. He was denying everything about it. And I would imagine even the Force. He doesn't want to dive too deep into it. But as he's training Ezra, he's discovering his passion for it. And then him going blind, he has nothing else to focus on except for the Force, right? So I believe he is growing powerful in the Force.
Absolutely, and way ahead of Luke in Empire Strikes Back, way ahead of that Luke Skywalker. I know Luke Skywalker was very powerful in Jedi, but I think Kanan now is way ahead of where Luke was.
Oh, for sure.
In Empire.
Luke couldn't even get the X-wing out of the swamp, and here's Kanan I've got a plan. Let's destroy this bridge, and I'm going to hold it up while you guys cross the bridge. He's definitely got some power there. And to what you were saying there, he jumps across the chasm, and Saw's like, "Oh, I forgot the Jedi could do that."
But he's no Skywalker.
Yeah, that was Captain Rex that threw that in there. That was a good throwback to Anakin.
And the other thing, rocket troopers. We got rocket troopers.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
These guys were cool. Now, you know more about Star Wars than I do. Have you ever seen a rocket trooper, or is this a new trooper?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever... I mean, I know that I think it was Hasbro released a toy just recently, a stormtrooper with a jetpack on the back, whatever, but certainly there's a tie-in. There was a reason they released that.
And if we're wrong, guys, let us know in the comments section if there's ever been rocket troopers in canon. Again, we always try to keep this to canon, not legend. So please let us know in the comments if the rocket troopers have been in something else in canon. I don't read all the comic books. Maybe they're in there. But as far as I know, I think this is the first time we've ever seen rocket troopers.
And an interesting helmet design. The helmet kind of was shaped almost like an AT-AT driver.
Yes.
But it had the eyes of a clone trooper, but certainly the mouth of a standard stormtrooper. So it gave a different look, but a familiar look. Definitely a familiar look. And they come out with their jetpacks. And then finally, we get to see Sabine put on that backpack that she got a few episodes ago. She obviously repaired the thing, and she put it on, and she takes care of business.
She kicked butt.
Oh, yeah, she did.
She kicked butt in this episode. And that was just, a 30-second clip of her? I can't wait to see when she actually gets her big story arc. We saw it in the trailer, that story arc you were talking about. She's going to kick butt in that, I'm sure.
And then a fantastic throwback line when she finishes up her battle. She flies back down, and Ezra says, "Oh, I want a backpack," and she says, "I know." Excellent throwback.
So anything else that you want to talk about that you really liked in this episode? I want to actually talk about the storyline plot in the parts that I didn't like.
Okay.
But
as far as the other things that I like in this episode, I really like they give us a little more depth to Saw Gerrera. We get to see why in Rogue One
he's nuts.
He's nuts, and we get kind of see him heading that direction. We see Hera. Hera's heard some news about him. She's like, I don't know if we can trust this guy.
Yeah, I said that to you when he looks at her and goes, "It's an honor to meet you. I've heard lots of good things about you." And she goes, "Yeah, I've heard things about you too."
Right.
I said to you right away, I don't think that was a compliment.
No. And yeah, like
and then immediately they go next scene because it just that lends itself to how good the voice actors are in Rebels.
Right.
Because I picked up on that she, in her inflection, the way she spoke it, I picked up. I don't think that was a compliment.
Yeah, and great that we get Forrest Whitaker to voice Saw Gerrera in this episode. He did a fantastic job.
Again, fan service, the way they're tying in Rebels to the movies.
Very much so. I guess having said that, it's going to lead me into some of the stuff that I didn't particularly care for in this episode, so I'll let you step into that.
So I didn't like the fact that they didn't explain why the Geonosis click-clack, and I hate the name. Again, I think but they have to do things like that for the kids. This is a kids show. It's an animated show, Disney XD. Click-clack. Why didn't he have wings? We talked about this through the whole episode.
Yeah, some serious unanswered questions.
You theorized, maybe it's not a he, it's a she, and maybe the women don't have wings. We even tried to look it up on Wikipedia, and as far as I could see, all the Geonosians have wings on there. So that's an unanswered thing. I mean, most people probably didn't even think about that, but that's the things we talk about is why no wings?
Right. Well, because clearly in Attack of the Clones and all the Clone Wars episodes that we see, all the Geonosians have wings.
And the movie.
The Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
In the Clone Wars, we do get to see that queen that's pumping out eggs like in Aliens.
And that's what you thought it might have been.
I don't think that she has wings. Well, it's hard to tell. She's this massive, fat blob, but that's what I was theorizing, that possibly this is a young queen.
And you had mentioned the comic book?
I don't read the comic books a lot, but I had read a couple of issues, and I thought that there was an issue where Dr. Aphra went to Geonosia and found a sterile queen or something to that effect. I can't really talk about it because I don't know very well, but it seemed like maybe that's the direction that they were taking it, that this was possibly, or the egg that this Click-Clack had was possibly the egg that becomes the queen that Aphra finds.
So when at the end Click-Clack goes down that hole and covers it up, do you think all the Geonosians, there's some survived and they're hiding down there? Or was he by himself with the egg? And maybe there's a whole bunch of eggs down there, so they open it up for future things. The Geonosians will be back. Right. Just theorizing. I mean, we don't know, but what do you think?
Just theorizing. In the episode, it seemed to pretty heavily indicate that there was no Geonosians left.
That's right? What I'm thinking.
They found these canisters, that they've poisoned the Geonosians. They've wiped them out completely. This one survived. I think if there was more, they would have come out to try to help protect the egg, because that egg is the future of the race.
Yeah.
Right? And I think even Rex alluded to the fact that it was a queen egg.
Yeah.
So that egg has to survive if there's any chance for the race to survive. So if there were some drone Geonosians down there somewhere, I think they would have come out to try to protect the egg.
Okay.
So I think just her, or Click-Clack, he, her, whatever it was, that one being the only one, I think that's it.
So the other thing, and you said you liked Saw, the other thing, I liked Saw in part 1. Okay. I want to see more of the Saw that we saw in Clone Wars. I know he was only in 4 episodes. I didn't really... After I've seen Rogue One 5 times now. And the more I was watching it, the more I didn't like Saw Gerrera. I thought he was a little too crazy. You had said that when he's sucking on that thing in Rogue One, it's probably drugs, painkillers, and it makes him a little higher. But in the part 2, I saw the Saw that I saw in Rogue One. He's an extremist. He's a terrorist. Like do anything, hold the egg gunpoint. And I know they have to have that because they have to show the different levels of the Rebel Alliance.
Right.
And they're not all going to be like Ezra and Kanan, like Luke Skywalker, like Wedge, like what we've seen in the movies. They're showing this, they're developing this Saw Gerrera character as a darker, but I don't like it.
Or the grayer.
There's
a gray Star Wars that's kind of taking a prominence right now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I like that in the cartoon. I liked it in Rogue One, not the Saw part, but the grayer areas that they showed in the movies. But I'm not sure I want that in my animated series.
Well, if you go back, and I haven't watched them recently, I need to go back and check them out. The Saw Gerrera Clone Wars episodes, I seem to remember that he was
a little darker.
He was edgy, right?
Yeah, he was.
And he kind of pushed everyone, and I think that's why they had voted Stella into the leadership role. And he wasn't happy with that, and he kind of wanted to break off from her at that point. So, I mean, they planted those seeds, definitely, that he does things outside of the box, right?
Well, and I think I told you this before. I think when his sister died, that's when he snapped. Like, that was what sent him over the edge.
Well, and they alluded
Anything
that in
goes.
this episode, right?
Yes, they did.
Ezra finds that little hollow projector.
And he goes a little nuts.
Yeah, and he's like, that's the only thing I have of her. And you could tell that really messed with him a lot, right?
So, this episode for me, and again, liked the episode, but I thought that the story was maybe a little weak.
And that's what I was going to talk about.
Okay, I'll let you go then.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about. We do get a bit of character development for Saw Gerrera, but the story around Geonosis, there's still way too many unanswered questions.
They should have given us something in this episode.
And they hinted at the Death Star with Click-Clack drawing in the sand, the 2 circles, and they thought it was the Imperial logo. It must be that, then the circle within the circle. There's still a lot of unanswered questions there. what happened to them, how are they going to proceed, are there more eggs, I would have liked to see that develop a little bit more, and this is the perfect time to do it.
It would have been a great kickoff to the second half of the season.
Right.
I don't sometimes, and I've talked about this before with Rebels, I don't like that they drag it on. I know they have to do 20, 21 episodes.
Right.
I get that. But when you do your filler episodes, that's your character development episodes. When you do an episode like this, give us teeth, give us meat.
Right.
Let us know what's going on, because they're only 22 minutes each. Give us the nuggets. Don't drag them on with other things, because I go back to the whales episode. A lot of people hated the whales episode. I loved the whales episode
too, yeah.
because I love the fact that it developed Ezra's character, showing how powerful he is with animals.
Right.
I want to see these episodes packed full of punch. I want part 1, part 2, give me lots of information about Geonosis, and then give me some of those dragged on episodes. I think they tried to do a little bit half and half of this one.
Right. Well, I think their mandate going into this was, let's tie this into Rogue One. Right?
Absolutely.
They give us
absolutely.
They give us Saw Gerrera. They're hinting at the Death Star. We know the Death Star. If you've read Catalyst, we get a lot of backstory of the Death Star being created at Geonosis.
And sorry to interrupt you. If you haven't read Catalyst, go on our channel. We did a whole spoiler review of Catalyst, and it's in about 30 minutes, so you can get a book that took us hours and hours and hours. We gave you the highlights. So
right. And so they tied this into Rogue One. So they gave us all of those things, but yeah, they really were lacking on the meat and the teeth, like you were saying. Answer a couple more of those questions for us. Let us know a little bit more about what was going on in Geonosis. I thought that's where the episode was lacking. So I liked the character development, and there were some great lines and some great fan service, but a little thin.
Yeah.
For being the mid-season premiere or whatever it is.
So all in all, let's rank this episode.
Rank it, okay.
Yeah, let's just do it, out of 10. I'm going to give this episode a 7 out of 10.
That's where I was going to land, actually.
Yeah.
Right there on 7, yeah.
It had a lot of cool new things. Like I said, it had the rocket troopers, some great lightsaber stuff on top of the Ghost, some great... that we didn't even talk about that space battle, that little battle where she was flying and went down the thing. That was really cool.
Right.
So it had everything I want in a Star Wars Rebels episode except story development.
Right.
So I want to give it a 7 out of 10. It's not a perfect episode, but it's not a bad episode. You should watch this. I've seen some bad Rebels episodes where I would have given it a 3 out of 10. This one's a 7 out of 10 for me. You said the same?
Yeah, I agree. 7 out of 10. The visuals are great. I said before, the texturing, the look of the episode was fantastic. I really like the character development. The background for Saw that kind of speaks to who he was in Rogue One, but they don't really give us anything else as far as the rest of the Rebels go. This was a Saw Gerrera episode.
And this is only a year and 10 months before Rogue One happens.
Right.
And he looks a lot healthier in this episode than he does in Rogue One. So something happens in the next year and 9 months.
There were some rumors about a scene possibly cut out of Rogue One where he had a showdown with Vader.
Oh.
And that was why we see him in a rough shape that he was.
So do you think they might show that in Rebels? Or do you think they'll save that for a book or a comic or something else?
Well, when we see him in the flashbacks of Rogue One, when he's taking care of Jen, his young girl, he looks kind of like this. He looks healthier.
Yes.
He's got the shaved head. He looks in shape. We don't see him lumbering around with the peg leg or whatever it was.
I hope we get that story in Rebels. I hope that would be a great thing to show in a cartoon, how that transition happened from now Saw to Rogue One Saw.
Right. That would be a great transition. And if that's the case, if it was a showdown between him and Vader, I would love to see that.
Yeah, and they're using Vader just right in Rebels, I think. He comes in very sparingly, as Vader should be used. I do not want a Darth Vader movie. I think that would be a giant mistake for the Star Wars universe to make a whole movie about Vader. He's good in doses.
Yeah.
Because the mystery, the villain, I always say the best villain is the villain that thinks he's right and the villain you don't see a lot.
Right.
I've always thought that.
The only one thing that I would have liked to see in Rogue One, and in addition with Vader, I would have loved to see Hayden Christensen in the Bacta tank.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Although,
just to pan the camera around a little bit, show us that it's still Hayden. Show us that it's still.
I think when we pause it, I think when we get the DVD and we're able to pause it, I think they've drawn in Hayden. I do, because in the fifth time, I was watching really, really close on the Bacta tank, and I think it is the top of Hayden Christensen's head. And I think when we get to pause it, they digitally put him in. I think so? We're going to see that.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think they did.
Well, let's hope so. If not, maybe George Lucas can do a special edition.
Oh, please no.
Do a paper.
All right, guys. So that's our review of The Ghost of Geonosis Part 1 and 2. Please let us know what you thought of our review in the comments section. Let us know if you think we're out to lunch. Let us know what you think of the episode. We'd love to see your ranking from 1 to 10 of this episode. And let us know what you think is going to happen at the end of the season, like we think Maul's going to die. Jason, where can the good people find you on social media?
Hit me up on Instagram at Vintage Star Wars. You can private message me there, do whatever. Love me, hate me, whatever.
And you can find me on Twitter at MovieGuySci-Fi, or email me if you want to ask a question, you want me to read it on the show, movieguySci-fi@gmail.com. And remember, everybody, nerds rule the world.